The culture in Faith Tabernacle. There is a culture in Faith Tabernacle that really needs to be dealt with before full healing can take place. That, in my opinion, that culture goes far beyond who is the pastor. Who the pastor is does make a difference, but that's not what's going to change Faith Tabernacle. That's not what's driving this. Yes, Edwin Young was wrong. Yes, Jordan Young was wrong. But that is not the main difficulty. It's easy to focus, and it's typical. You find a scapegoat, and you use that scapegoat. Oh, they were the problem. We got rid of them. It's all okay now. That's not going to fix the problem. People need to search themselves. People, instead of pointing fingers and saying, well, that was the problem, now we're rid of it, and dusting their hands off and going about exactly what they were doing before, they need to search their own hearts. The Bible talks about when the brother is taken in a fault, that you do go back and check yourself so that you don't fall too. But the culture in Faith Tabernacle has brought a lot of this on. The culture of, we don't question what the pastor says. Whatever the pastor says is right. Nobody says anything against the pastor. It doesn't matter what happens, you don't question. If the pastor does something really, really wrong, and you do have the audacity to question it, you're told that you're wrong for questioning. And other people in the congregation, rather than getting with you and saying, let's check this out, the two options seem to be gossip, run your mouth, and the pastor kicks you out, or you go back and you just shut up and you deal with whatever happened and you ignore it so that you can go on pretending everything is okay. And you can pretend to a point where you're convinced that you're right and that everything was okay. Sooner or later, something comes out. And then you realize, wow, something really was wrong. Why did we miss it? What happened? Well, there were indicators all along that there were problems. No, I didn't guess that this would turn out the way that it would either. But there were indicators. There were things that were going on that were obviously wrong. But it didn't stop with who was in the pulpit. When you have a man get up and preach against somebody, stand them up in the middle of a congregation and say, you are wrong, not talk to them in private, not find out what was really going on, nothing like that. Just all of a sudden stand up. Somebody said something about you and you're wrong. We heard this. Somebody in the congregation thought they saw you in a video. Stand up. Well, and the congregation, rather than being shocked or surprised, gets behind, quote unquote, the man of God and runs the aisles and shouts, because if the shoe fits, wear it, and if it don't, shout, was what he would tell you if you got quiet. Oh, get quiet on me. Well, maybe you were getting quiet because you knew something was wrong, but then he drove you to shout instead and to forget and to get excited about you're right, rather than feeling for that person and reaching out to them that could have been taken in a small fault. You shouted and forgot about them and just took pride in yourselves for what you did right and for the fact that you weren't getting called out. And if you did run the aisles, you wouldn't get called out. If you ran to him and told him everything that you thought you saw, then and you got to him before anybody else did, then you were not going to be called out. The other people would. That's not church. That's not biblical. But Faith Tabernacle really needs to look into their own hearts. Every single person there needs to look at themselves, and they need to consider what the Bible actually says about church discipline, about restoring people, and about gossip, about backbiting, about slandering each other. There are things that need to be considered and weighed out, things that need to change at the heart of Faith Tabernacle, not just a change of pastorate, but a change of heart among the people. Until you have that change of heart in the whole of Faith Tabernacle, until people stop enabling the people who are doing wickedness, until you stop having people praised for reporting other people, and you stop dropping notes under the office door saying, I think that I saw them wearing nail polish on their toenails, under their hose, I saw a glisten under their pantyhose or whatever at their toenails. Well, stop it. Just, go to that person. Ask them. Work with them. Love them. Teach them a better way. But don't hate them. Don't act hatefully toward them. Don't go around bitter and jealous and gossiping and backbiting about each other. Until that changes, you don't really have a church. You have a divided group of people who meet together in fear. That's not church.
What do you think that they would have to do to... Everybody's expecting revival. How are they going to take it when this revival does not come, because basically the church is staying just how it is?
A revival is used as a carrot on a stick. It's not they were told since the new sanctuary was built that there would be a great revival. And when a bunch of people left, it's going to be a great revival. God's going to send revival. God's going to fill this building. And it didn't happen. And it didn't happen under Westberg. And then it didn't happen later under Young. And things got worse and things got worse. And now that Dudley's here, we're going to have revival. It's always out there as a possibility. It's always just in front of you, but never quite within your grasp. How can a church have revival? Part of it is coming clean with what's going on. Part of it is being honest and open. The church that I started going to, I wasn't attracted to because they looked perfect. I was attracted to them because they were honest enough to say that they're human and they're not perfect. There's a big difference with that. But I think that the second is probably more honorable than the first. The first is full of pride. Well, we're perfect. We don't sin. We don't have any problems. Everything's swept under the rug. Well, what's done in secret will be rewarded openly, for the good or the bad. Stop having all the secrets. Just say, this is what happened. This is how we're dealing with it. Don't hide it. Don't sweep it under the rug. Just be open about it. Just be honest about it. I would respect Faith Tabernacle a lot more for that than I do with them pretending that everything is great now. Yeah, it may look great to you right now, but, well, you would say hide and watch. I'll tell you the same thing, though. Sit there and watch. We'll see where you are in 3 years, 5 years, but I don't think that you're really going to have revival until your attitude toward others changes. There are people, when I left, one of the most embarrassing things that happened to me was that I went to a restaurant with a new group of my friends. And when we sat down and the waitress came out, one of them invited her to their church and handed her a card. And she sat down and she looked at it and she said, I would come to your church. There's one church in town that I wouldn't even take their cards. She said, they'll give us cards all the time, but they've got such nasty attitudes toward people. And she said they'll run you ragged, they don't give a tip, and then they hand you a card and invite you to church. And she said the waitresses and waiters would just take the card and walk it straight back to the trash can and laugh as they threw it away. And said there'd be several cards. There would be multiple cards in the trash by the end of the day, all from Faith Tabernacle. And she named the church. And my friends, look, and they're trying not to be obvious because I'm from Faith Tabernacle and they all knew that. Sitting there and hearing her observations and her thoughts on what people were like, going into the store and seeing somebody from Faith Tabernacle ream out one of the cashiers because she was doing her job and closed her cash register to go close up at the end of the night. There were other cash registers open. Ream her out till she was just nearly in tears. And then stepping up to her dressed the same way as they had been and seeing the fear on her face that I was going to have the same attitude, because in Junction City, Kansas right now, the general population does not see a skirt, long sleeves, and a bun as a warm, welcoming thing. They see it as a warning. Get away from them. They're going to be nasty to you. That's something that the clerks and the cashiers and the workers in the different stores and restaurants in town have expressed on several occasions to me. It's not good to see somebody come up in a skirt and a bun and long sleeves in Junction City. They're going to be mean. Until that changes, how are you going to reach out to them? If the only thing that they see, do you know where most of the people who come to Faith Tabernacle come from? They're new to the area. They don't know anything yet. And, well, they go because several people have invited them and they needed something to do or whatever. But it's not that these are long-term members of the community that are coming. The long-term members of the community don't want anything to do with it. Is there not a problem with that? It's not from things like this that are posted on the internet. If there was a good witness from the members of the church in the community wouldn't even think about something like this. The problem is, what I'm saying is what the community thinks. Maybe it's time to think about that. Maybe it's time to change some things. We have to love people. We can't reach people with our anger and our controlling attitudes and our I'm better than you attitudes. That's not going to reach anybody. It's time to reach out. If you want revival, in order to reach out, you're going to have to love people. I know love has been mocked in Faith Tabernacle, but if you will read 1 Corinthians 13, if you will read 1 John 4 and think about it, love was an integral part of the New Testament church. It was why people thought that there might be something to this. Not that people were just willing to die for something, but there was a reason they were willing to die for it, and that had to do with love. Not the attitudes, not, well, I'm going to tell them they're going to hell. No, not like that. That's not loving them. Reaching out to them in their situations, caring for them where they're at, having compassion and empathy for them, showing mercy and understanding. That's going to make a difference.